Sales is without a doubt the most important department within your business. If you have a service or a product and you cannot sell it to people, then the service or the product may as well not exist in the first place. Because at the end of the day, for a business to actually exist and survive and thrive and make money, you need to be able to exchange that service or that product to a person in exchange for money. And that money is going to be the lifeline to your business. But without sales, it cannot happen and your business will not survive. And I find it really interesting that based on that premise, that in places like the UK or in Ireland where I'm from, that there's such a taboo subject label put on sales. There's this idea that if you're a salesman, you're sleazy, or oh, it's bad for the planet if you're selling, or oh, he's a salesman, I'm not going to listen to him because he only cares about himself. But at the end of the day, and if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you'll know at this stage, the way that I look at sales and the way that I always preach to other people, it's just an exchange of value. You're providing a service or a product to a person, and they value that service or that product more than they value the money that they currently have, and they will be happy to give it to you. You'll be better off as a result of it. They'll be better off as a result of it. And so long as everybody is, of good mental health, of a good state and a good position to make that decision, then the world is a better place as a result of it. Creates jobs, keeps people busy, and it makes everybody's life better. Even the tax man wins off the back of it. But I want to talk to you today about some very basic frameworks and principles that you can implement within your own sales systems for your business, be it for B2B, B2C, whatever it may be. It really doesn't matter. Obviously, the majority of my viewers are going to be in the mortgage space, but everything that I'm talking about today is evergreen, and you will be able to use this and get more sales from your business. And even if you don't get more sales, you'll have a more clear-cut process and be able to develop more efficiency, which will allow you to obviously then take some time and implement some new ideas to increase your sales. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, another way of looking at sales is that it's just a form of customer service. By being a good salesman, you're serving your customers well. And this goes back to the very basic premise that I was talking about initially, that sales is just an exchange of value. People are providing money in exchange for a service or a product. And to be a good salesman means that you're able to service that person well and give them what it is that they want. And like I said, this obviously is on the basis that what you're selling, the product or the service, is actually good for the customer. By ensuring that sales actually go through, then you're giving good customer service. And I will sort of caveat that as well by saying that, of course, there may also be instances whereby good customer service means not selling to the client or not selling to the customer and actually just disqualifying them, because you're going to get cases whereby it isn't a good fit or the person shouldn't go ahead and make the decision. Be it a yes or be it a no, all it is a form of customer service, and it's your job to guide that person into making the decision that's best for them. Now, you might be thinking to yourself at this point, oh, but if you're having to guide them and make them do it, then is it really in their best interests if they weren't 100% set on it? And I can obviously 100% understand that point of view, and it's one that I would have held for a very long time before I jumped into the field of business. But you have to think about how people actually take actions and how people actually do things as well. And it comes back to a very basic principle that people don't like change. People like what they're familiar with. It takes brain power to come to grips with a new thing in your life, be it a new service, a new product, whatever it may be, to actually mentally think about investing your money, which is what you use to obviously survive, into something new and making a big change. And people don't like change. So there's always going to be some form of sales resistance or change resistance for a person, because they don't want to have to deal with a new thing coming into their life. Of course, they're comfortable with where they stand. But being comfortable isn't always the best thing. You can be comfortable. I'm trying to think of a good example for this. I learned a new word the other day, sadomasochism, which is essentially the love of pain and being comfortable and enjoying being in a bad situation. I could go on a whole tangent, so I'm not going to, but you understand what it is that I'm trying to say. Just because someone's comfortable or believes that they're happy in a certain position doesn't mean that they're actually happy in that position. You know what I mean? You might look at somebody who runs a business, for example. I'll give a really basic principle or a really basic example. Let's say somebody runs a business and they love the business. It's their bread and butter. Their dad passed it off to them. It's the love of the family. They're all over it. But their sales are absolutely tanking. They only close like 5% of the calls that they take, and all the revenue is going down the drain. Awful. But they might enjoy their current life because, well, they only get out of bed at like 9 in the morning. They don't really work all that hard. And then whenever the day's done, they go and have their beer or whatever. But it isn't necessarily good for that person because if the business tanks and they have no money coming in, then that's going to be a worse off position. It is in your best interest to show that person that they need to make a change because it is in their best interests. So that's just an example of how sales is good customer service and providing a good service to make the person in a better off position as a result of working with you. Something else that I wanted to talk about was getting definitive answers from each of your prospects or each of your leads that you have calls or conversations with. It's very easy, especially in a high ticket service based business. Mortgage advisors, if you're watching, start taking notes. For you to have a call with somebody, you get to the end and they say, "Oh, okay. Yeah, so can you just email all that over? I need to just take some time to go over the options and make the best decision for me, and I can get back to you just whenever I'm ready. So if you could send that over an email, that would be great." But you know that that's not going to close the sale. If someone says to send them over an email, then there's a problem there. There's a problem that they haven't brought up with you. It's a smokescreen objection, so to speak, because if this was something that they were 100% set on and they knew that this was the very best option for them, their life was going to be so much better. And a good example for this would be, let's say somebody says to you, "Hey mate, here's a lottery ticket. I know for a fact that this is going to win. It's backed by the US government, backed by government of the UK, backed by the Russian government, and UN is going to declare a war on the entirety of the East if it doesn't go through. You will win £100 million if you buy this lottery ticket from me right now, but it's going to cost 10 grand. Every single person will buy that lottery ticket, even if it's a case of, "Oh, okay, cool, I'll buy it in 24 hours, whatever it may be, let me borrow from other friends, whatever it is." So the idea that somebody goes ahead and says, "Let me think about it, blah, blah, blah," smokescreen objection, there's something there that they're not 100% certain on. And what I want to tell you now is to get definitive answers from each and every one of your clients or leads. And if you can't get it on the call, through follow-up. Follow up with someone until you have got a definitive yes or no. Once again, go back to the first principle. If it's in their best interests to go ahead with it, despite the fact that they might not want to make the change or pour a lot of money into something, if it's genuinely good for them and you know it's good for them and their life's going to be better as a result of it, then it's your moral duty and your role as somebody in a customer service role to actually get that person signed up with the product, service, whatever it may be. So get definitive answers from people. And if you can't get it on the call, you want to follow up with people. But when it comes to actually getting it on the call, it's not necessarily as hard as people make it out to be. People think to themselves, "Oh, I don't want to pressure this person into a decision, whatever. Maybe I don't want to make them uncomfortable. It's going to be awkward if I ask them." But here's the thing. If you don't ask them, that it's only going to drag out the whole process. You'll have to follow up with somebody. It becomes inefficient. You're going to forget the follow-up people. You need to set another call and take another hour of your time. They need to take more time out of their day as well. It's very inefficient. And all of it can be solved by simply just saying this. "Yeah, mate, listen, like, I could absolutely send you over an email. Truth be told, though, like, obviously, like I said, we've covered everything at this stage, and I don't want to, chase you up and waste your time if it isn't something that you're interested in. But just from my perspective, if you can hear me out, if this were something that you were 100% certain on, obviously, you'd probably be quite keen to get started, right? But that's not really the case here, based on what I'm seeing. So do you mind if I just ask at this stage, what is it that is sort of stopping you from making a decision at the moment or right now? And they might say, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They'll give you a real objection. But then obviously this can get deep. I'm not going to sit here and give you an hour-long sales training. And if it is the case that they don't go ahead and give you the reason, you can just probe a little bit more. Okay, cool. So is there anything else that would sort of hold you back from making a decision after you've got that sorted? And they might give you an answer, they might not. But once again, you can disqualify people too. If you get a definitive no, is better than nothing and chasing that person and never getting an answer. So that's point number 2. Get definitive answers from everybody that you speak with. You can do it on the call. You can push. You can be uncomfortable. Actually say the things that you need to say to make more sales and make your business more efficient. Or you can follow up people. But I'd always recommend trying to get that sale on the call if you know it's in their best interests. Okay, last point. And the last point that I want to make here is about learning from your mistakes and your bottlenecks. Sales and stranger all the way through to paying customer is a system, and there are different stages within this system. So you could say, for example, you've got your stranger, you need to get them to a paying customer. You need to find a way to generate that lead and be able to get in contact with the person, a way to get them onto the call, a way to conduct that call, a way to get them to pay, and then actually fulfill the service. What you'll probably notice is that if your sales or your revenue or your business isn't where you want it to be, one of those separate stages is going to be bottlenecked, which means that nothing can actually pass through this bottleneck because it just gets jammed. So whenever you find yourself in a position whereby you see that sales are down, wherever it may be, it's more than likely because one of those stages is jammed. And this is where learning from your mistakes comes in. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to be an issue that you're seeing on your calls. You've got microcosms and macrocosms here, and you can have a little microcosm of one particular objection coming up in every single call, whereby someone says, oh, okay, cool, I just need to think about it. So if you were to handle that objection and find a way to get people to actually go ahead and make a decision, instead of just saying, I need to think about it, number one, more efficiency, more sales, blah, 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 everything gets fixed. But what you might find is that there's a way bigger issue that isn't just a case of overcoming one objection. You might find that you can't get anybody onto a call in the first place, for example. And you might find that the reason that that's happening is because your reminder system is broken or something like that. You get the picture that I'm trying to make here. Just because you aren't making the money that you want to make in your business doesn't mean that you just have an issue with the way that people are speaking to you on calls and the way that you're handling things that people say, or the way that you ask questions, the way that you probe people, the way that you actually discover their current situation and frame yourself as the solution. That isn't always going to be the issue. Because if you're selling, like a turd, if you're selling a turd that's like wrapped up in all this fancy stuff, saying, oh, it looks amazing, but then they unwrap it and they see that it's absolutely rubbish, then that's a problem, because people are going to be demanding refunds, chargebacks, bad reviews. It gets pretty messy pretty quickly. So there could be an issue with the product there. But really focusing on your sales and your metrics is going to give you a view of your business like you've probably never seen it before. And that is keeping a view of everything. How many leads you generate, how many leads that you actually get onto a call, how many calls you conduct, how many of those calls convert, how many of those converted calls turn into happy clients, why were the unhappy clients not happy, why did people not convert in those calls, why did leads not show up to the calls, so on and so forth. And you'll be able to nitpick and see different issues that you have within your business and unleash those bottlenecks. And that's what's really going to get you to the numbers that you want, because then it's no longer about just getting up and thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to do this today. I feel like doing this, so I'm going to work on this today. You work off numbers, you work off data, and you make decisions driven by that data. If you stick to that, then you won't fail. If you continue to learn and continue to implement new things based on that data, then your business will exponentially grow and improve. So I hope that this has been super helpful for everybody. Appreciate you taking the time today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one as well. Before I do go, actually, just cut